Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to pick up the discussion again on the logistics side of Brexit, as the Road Haulage Association explains that we've already lost 15,000 lorry drivers to this act of national self-harm, and that the consequences for food supply are going to become more severe this autumn. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this is almost like a follow-up. I'd just been talking in the past couple of days about articles in pro-Brexit newspapers complaining that food prices were set to go up as a result of Brexit. They didn't blame Brexit, of course. The Express, at least, were trying to blame this on EU red tape, even though, as I explained, the red tape attached to imports is British red tape. They have got nothing to do with stuff coming into Britain. But never mind that for now. What I was pondering at the time was why the Express talked about autumn as being a particular flashpoint for higher food prices. See, being a pro-Brexit paper, it was a little light on details. Of course it was, because if they ever explained what was going on in terms of causing these issues, then it would be hard to blame the EU for them. So I thought they might be referring to the extra UK red tape that is scheduled to be implemented this October. And indeed, that is likely to be a factor. After all, we didn't implement our spring stage of checks and have already announced that we won't be applying our summer phase of checks. So if the government did the same thing there, it might not be that much of a factor at all. So although lots of people are bemoaning the restriction in holiday opportunities again this summer, smugglers are absolutely rubbing their hands with glee. But the Road Haulage Association talked about lorry driver shortages, creating a perfect storm for food deliveries this autumn. This would also certainly hit food prices and could be part of the source of a major impact in terms of supply. Now, a report quoted a director of the Road Haulage Association, Rod Mackenzie, saying that a combination of lorry driver shortages, as well as the end of more customs grace periods in October, which is what I was focused on in the previous video, is likely to lead to pressure on supermarkets to raise prices because demand is just simply going to outweigh supply. And he thinks that this is going to be particularly focused on, say, pasta, meat and dairy. He said that we lost a lot of lorry drivers to Brexit. Drivers who were EU citizens but didn't want to remain in the UK, and that British workers aren't taking up the jobs available to make up the shortfall. Now, before I go over a few other things of interest in the report, I will just say I don't know to what extent these individual problems will be caused by the ending of grace periods, or if they will be just an influence on them. Because we know that the government will happily put off customs checks if the consequences would be very noticeable in public and there aren't any consequences for putting them off. That's not guesswork, they've already done it. They unilaterally extended the grace periods that were supposed to end at the end of April. This July we were supposed to be having pretty much full phytosanitary checks on goods coming into Britain from the EU. The reason, as I've said before, is that we do not have the systems to cope. It would mean shortages of food in Britain at just the time when the government want hospitality to open up again. People may well be consuming more and a wider variety of food as they put on barbecues or the parties at home, but people will also be taking more day trips or just eating out more. In addition, more people are likely to holiday in Britain than go abroad. I mean, not much choice in many cases, actually. You know, like the people who booked holidays to Portugal when the government put it on the green list and are now a bit stuck that it's been taken off. It's a little aside. I can't really decide whether I'm sympathetic to a plight that's beyond their control, or if I just feel that, what were you doing? Are you not paying attention to what's going on? What, just because the government said you could go to Portugal, you thought you could? Really? Have you not read any news in the last year? But it doesn't matter whether I think these people have been dumb or just unlucky. UK-based holidays are also going to mean more food needing to be imported. This was not going to occur if it was rotting away at our customs choke points because we didn't have anywhere near enough inspectors, and the few that we did have are still trying to get their heads around the opaque new procedures. The bottom line is that if applying the October customs procedures in autumn would mean noticeable food shortages, and those shortages could be made much less visible by not applying those procedures, the government will absolutely not apply those procedures. I would even say that the food shortages are more important politically than the price increases. See, price increases on staple foods would, of course, plunge even more people into food poverty, and it would be extra harsh on people already in food poverty. But as those who struggle to buy the essentials either don't vote Conservative anyway, or if they do, sorry, they're dumb enough to keep voting for them, regardless of the self-harm it causes, then I doubt the government care much about that. Most people, after all, can afford even steep price increases. I know you'll see sometimes in the papers, it's happening right now, about the tragedy of food price increases. Most people can just afford it. You might notice, but it doesn't actually take food off your table. But if you couldn't get the food at all, regardless of the cost, if the shelves were actually bare, then they have a political problem, because that affects way more people. Now, although I said that the government will just keep ignoring checks on goods coming into the country if it causes them political problems, there are other factors that could change things. So right now, it's a no-brainer for Johnson, which is good because he's not a fan of engaging his brain. But if there are consequences of continuing to unilaterally extend grace periods, it might reduce his room for manoeuvre. See, so far he's not been punished for transgressions. I mean, the EU have begun legal action in terms of goods going from Britain to Northern Ireland, but we're talking about stuff coming into Britain. There will be other countries around the world that are not happy about that. At the moment, we are giving the EU a competitive advantage without a particular agreement. We don't have a customs union arrangement. We don't have any reason at the moment to be giving the EU a competitive advantage by not applying checks to their goods. So there will be other countries around the world who will get a bit sniffy at some point. We'll just have to see where that goes. The problem with the EU in terms of the consequences, even for goods passing from Britain to Northern Ireland, which would be a source of food shortages there if we were to apply checks. The EU, in theory, have things they could do, but they're just hinting at the moment. No ultimatum, no details of what they're going to do. But like I said, that covers goods passing from Britain to Northern Ireland, which is a serious problem for Northern Ireland. But we're talking about food shortages here for the rest of Britain. So minimal impact on the majority of supermarkets here. But if the EU did start taking retaliatory action in the form of more trade barriers, Johnson may be getting out of one political problem, paying for it with another. If the United States or China or someone else had a bit of a beef with us on something, they may take action, and they're not shy about taking unilateral, quick action. But I would still say the calculation will maintain food supplies where it can, even if it means food prices go up. But like I said, where Northern Ireland is concerned, I suspect even Johnson has to be a little wary. But anyway, back to the report, and it made clear that food prices simply would have to go up. We have a shortage of lorry drivers. To get more, you are going to have to pay higher salaries. There's not a queue of people wanting to do it, which means you have to make it more attractive. That drives up the cost of transport. The supermarkets have been absorbing the extra costs so far. They cannot keep doing so. Increased fuel prices were also mentioned. That's true. I was just commenting the other day on here that I drove past the petrol station and I have never seen the price as high as it is now. So you've got increased costs for drivers, fuel, the global increases in food prices. That's a general trend at the moment. On top of more Brexit checks coming online at some point. Can't avoid food price increases. Simply can't avoid it. But like I said, I think supply is what would worry the government, not price. They can dismiss price increases on global trends, or even if they had to, just blame the supermarkets for being greedy. They can't dismiss food shortages. So will we see shortages this autumn or not? And if so, how severe and how long will they be? Well, to summarise, what I would say is it comes down to the following factors. 1, will the lorry driver shortage alone mean we can't meet demand? If it's the extra paperwork that is the major factor, there's something the government can do about that. If it's the lorry driver shortage, then there is little they can do unless they drop their Brexit mindset and start attracting more foreign lorry drivers back. Secondly, will the government be happy to continue putting off checks in terms of checks on goods passing into Britain? As I say, at the moment, there's no great pressure, but who knows if major global powers start to pipe up. But into Northern Ireland, the EU might well start taking retaliatory action. And then the third factor is how much food we can produce ourselves. Because the pro-Brexit media are already gearing up for a Buy British campaign, which is fine, except for a couple of things. 1, we don't produce enough to supply all the staple foods required. So we are always going to be reliant on imports. But secondly, we're having problems harvesting even what we can produce due to a lack of workers. So the amount of food we're going to produce for ourselves isn't going to go up, it's going to go down. Farming traditionally relies upon seasonal migrant labour, and that labour is conspicuous by its absence. Also, the government are currently trying to bribe farmers to quit their business altogether. So there are plenty of strands in this mess. I'm certainly not qualified to know how to weight each one in terms of impact. There exists the potential for everything to go wrong, but there doesn't exist the potential for none of it to go wrong. But those are my thoughts for now. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.